Chapter 208, Escape. Translator, Skypharaoh. Editor, Skypharaoh. An hour later, the lava crocodile king cried out one last time before it went silent. Soon after, Binding Bing and Fang Yuan heard the sound of the Xuanyuan divine pheasant pecking its food. But Xuanyuan divine pheasant's appetite was huge, and one lava crocodile king could not satisfy its hunger. This night, Fang Yuan and Binding Bing did not sleep. After the lava crocodile king's cries, they heard the white apes screaming, the poison-swallowing toads screech, and the fluttering of the bee groups. Most importantly, there was the Xuanyuan divine pheasant's loud cry. Only until evening did the Xuanyuan divine pheasant fly into the skies, drawing a rainbow behind its path. Seeing the trail of the rainbow disappearing in the sky, Fang Yuan and Binding Bing finally dared to walk out of the cave. The two came to the original valley. The valley was completely wrecked, half destroyed. The lava crocodile king laid belly side up on the ground, as dead as it could be. Its stomach was pried open by the Xuanyuan divine pheasant, and the flesh and intestines within were all eaten. Only its remaining skeleton, held together by the dark red crocodile skin, was left. The two searched for a while. They soon found a red glass fragment. This was the remains of the flame stomach goo. Evidently, the lava crocodile king activated the flame stomach goo for defense, but it was forcefully defeated by the Xuanyuan divine pheasant, causing the flame stomach goo to be destroyed. For the other two goo were lava explosion and accumulating ash goo. They were nowhere to be found. This was nothing strange. Once the host dies, the goo worms inhibiting the wild beast bodies will leave and roam around like they've lost their homes. Accumulating ash goo was a very ideal healing goo, perfect for Fang Yuan's situation. But things did not go according to one's will most of the time. Not obtaining the accumulating ash goo was within Fang Yuan's expectations, but they did not return empty-handed. There was still some flesh left in the lava crocodile king's corpse. The Xuanyuan divine pheasant ate most of the corpse, but left behind some scraps that Fang Yuan and Binding Bing could take. After working for an afternoon, they finally cut out all the meat and stored it in the tusita flour. These crocodile meat is enough to feed the crocodile strength goo for 3 months. Let's explore other areas. Fang Yuan and Binding Bing came to the territory of the white apes. The dense forest earlier had white ape groups playing and swinging around. But now everywhere there was broken trees, with white ape limbs in the mix. Some old, crippled, or young apes defended the corpses of their kin as they cried out loud, the entire forest covered in an atmosphere of sadness and devastation. The Xuanyuan divine pheasant had caused a catastrophe to this 1,000-beast group the night before. Right now, only 200 or 300 were left, and the last few hundred beast king white apes were all injured. Binding Bing stared with shining eyes. Right now, the white ape group is at their weakest. Shall we attack? Fang Yuan stopped her. Not that he pitied these white apes, but knew that in a way they were even more dangerous now. An army burning with righteous indignation is bound to win. Don't mess with these white apes. Once you do, they'll attack and rage, relentlessly attacking until we're dead. Those few hundred beast kings, although they are injured, it is not something you can deal with alone. I'm the sinister Binding Bing. Hearing so, looked at Fang Yuan before giving up on her plan to attack. The two moved towards the southwest area, towards the rotten swamp. The swamp had turned into a completely different site, ravaged by the Xuanyuan divine pheasant. Their living environment had been greatly destroyed, and the swamp's major forces were redistributed. Although the Xuanyuan divine pheasant left, the swamp was not in peace. All sorts of poisonous beings were killing each other, in chaos. Fang Yuan and Binding Bing stood at the fringe of the swamp. In only a while they saw 3 battles occurring. One sight was of 2 brightly colored poisonous snakes battling, until one was swallowed by the other. But not long after, a crab-sized scorpion came and stabbed the poisonous snake to death. The second battle was between a poison powder moth and an eerie blue toad. When battle ensued, the toad stretched its tongue and swallowed the moth. A moment later, the moth died of suffocation in the toad's mouth, but the toad was also poisoned to death by the powder. The third battle was between a face-sized black spider coming out from the mud. Its body was covered in ants. After a while, the ants won and completely devoured the spider. Seeing such a chaotic scene, Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing left immediately. Finally, they came to the nest of the Frenzy Needle bee group. The house-like beehive had collapsed completely. The surroundings was quiet. Not a single Frenzy Needle bee was left. The two got closer. Immediately, the fragrant smell of sesame entered Bai Ningbing's nose as she sniffed. What smell is that? The smell of the beehive. Frenzy Needle bee do not create honey, but their hives are a great goo refinement material. At the same time, it is a kind of food that humans can consume directly. Fang Yuan said so, stretching his arm into the beehive. Crack. The beehive fragments were dark yellow color. Under Bai Ningbing's curious gaze, he placed the beehive into his mouth, biting and crushing it in a few bites, swallowing it. The beehive tasted like biscuits on earth, fragrant and crispy. But undeniably, this naturally produced food was much more delicious than biscuits. It carried a light sweetness, not oily at all, but instead having a refreshing flavor. Good taste. Bai Ningbing also took a piece to eat, and after consuming it, she felt her mouth salivating. The sweet flavor caused her frowning eyebrows to ease subconsciously. Our salted meat and dry biscuits are finishing. We should collect some beehives and store it in your tusita flour, Bai Ningbing suggested. Fang Yuan looked at the sky, his expression slightly worried. I have the same thought, but we have to move quickly. You're worried that the blood smell of the lava crocodile king as well as the white ape's corpse will attract new wild beasts? Rest easy. There is no wind today. Wild beasts will not be attracted over, at least not in the meantime. During this period, we can collect to our heart's content, Bai Ningbing laughed. Fang Yuan shook his head, about to speak when suddenly his expression changed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of bees buzzing and flying entered their ears. Bai Ningbing looked at the sky immediately, only to see a thick cloud formed by numerous frenzy needle bees, attacking towards them. The frenzy needle beehive, although destroyed by Zhuan Yuan divine pheasant, and the most delicious piece of the beehive at the center was eaten, the frenzy needle bees were not reduced much in numbers. Frenzy needle bees could not cause damage to the Zhuan Yuan divine pheasant, so after the latter ate enough, it did not waste extra energy in exterminating these insignificant things. Frenzy Needle. B Group's house was destroyed, and because they had low intelligence, they started attacking the Zhuan Yuan divine pheasant. But once the Zhuan Yuan divine pheasant flew high into the sky, they no longer had the strength to pursue them and were unable to continue chasing. Thus, they could only return to their hive and reconstruct their houses. Afterwards, they saw two youngsters standing in their house eating their hive. Under this situation, what hesitation was there? The fury towards the Zhuan Yuan divine pheasant earlier was completely transferred to Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing. At once, numerous frenzy needle bees flapped their wings and rained down on the two. Bai Ningbing was stunned. Why are you still not running? Fang Yuan turned around and left, taking huge strides. Being reminded like this, Bai Ningbing immediately turned around and chased after Fang Yuan. The frenzy needle bee group was behind them, relentlessly chasing. Fang Yuan ran in front while Bai Ningbing fell behind. They did not have a movement-type goo, thus Bai Ningbing was quickly caught by the bee group. Chink, chink, chink. Bai Ningbing activated the sky canopy goo, and a white armor appeared but flickered immediately, receiving almost 1,000 attacks in just a moment. Frenzy Needle. Bees' needle were tough as steel, extremely sturdy. Together with their high-speed flying, it was no inferior to a needle rain attack. Large numbers cause a qualitative change. Bai Ningbing's primeval essence continued to reduce. The bee group's attacks are not to be underestimated. What was more troubling was that some of the frenzy needle bees had become goo. Rank 3 frenzy needle bee goo had piercing ability, so even the sky canopy goo could not defend against it. Bai Ningbing's back was quickly pierced, and she bled, causing her to grunt in pain, while her running speed broke her usual limits due to the stimulation. Bai Ningbing had never thought she could run so quickly on her own. With her speed, It looked like mountain rocks and trees came flying at her, and she had to concentrate with all her mind to dodge them. If she was tripped by anything, the bees would surround her at the first opportunity. Under such an attack, she was dead meat. With Bai Ningbing behind him, tanking the pressure, Fang Yuan's situation was much better. He activated his primeval essence, injecting them into his carapace goo at his back. The skin on his back became uneven, slightly bulging and becoming a tough and thick crocodile skin armor. Ordinary frenzy needle bees could not penetrate the crocodile skin armor, and the few bigu were attracted by Bai Ningbing. After running for another 15 minutes, the bees still chased relentlessly. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing were panting as their speed started to reduce. "There's hope! There's a lake in front!" As the situation turned dire, Fang Yuan suddenly shouted. Bai Ningbing was overjoyed. Trees became less densely packed as a blue-white light appeared, expanding within the greenery. The two rushed out of the forest, and a lake was seen. Fang Yuan did not hesitate, and with a plop, he jumped into the lake. Bai Ningbing followed closely behind. Swish, swish, swish. Frenzy needle bees were bent on getting them, diving into the water as well. Bai Ningbing's white armor shook intensely as she received a large number of attacks. As the intense pain hit her, she bit her lips and paddled with her hands, swimming towards the deeper parts of the water. A moment later, Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing emerged from the opposite shore. The smell of the beehive on their bodies had been washed away, and when looking back at their original spot, there were large numbers of frenzy needle bees indignantly flying about, attacking the water out of frustration. Although the frenzy needle bees were small, they were resilient. Even if they fell into the lake, as long as it was not too deep, they would resurface. "Damn it!" Bai Ningbing cursed, still feeling the lingering fear from earlier. Her expression was ugly. Be it the Zhuanyuan divine pheasant, or white ape group, or even the frenzy needle bee group, none of them were those she could deal with. If last night she was found by the Zhuanyuan divine pheasant, she would become its meal. Rank 3 cultivation in this cruel world of nature was the bottom of the hierarchy. "I've had enough. When will we reach Baigu Mountain?" "Shush, be quiet." Fang Yuan's expression was solemn. He half squatted as his finger touched the remains of a fire that had been put out earlier. Bai Ningbing immediately frowned deeply. Undeniably, these were traces left behind by humans,